We continue now at the top of Daf Chav Ches Amud Aleph and Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 28a. The Gemara continues Elahad Tanan, but what about that which we learned in the Mishnah? Matzah Tachrich Shel Shtaros or Aguda Shel Shtaros. If a person finds a roll of documents or a bundle of documents, Harei Zeh Yachzir, he returns it. And so the Gemara asks, Hachanami here also, are we saying over here that it's good for the borrower? He wants it to be returned to the lender just because the lender provides simonim. Rashi explains, and essentially, what we're saying in this mission is if that a simon is provided, we will return it. And if the malva were to give a simon, if the lender gave a simon, we would return the document to him. And so if the lova, let's say the document actually fell from the lova, and the whole idea of saying that simonim are derabanan is that it's nicha, it's good for the owner. He wants this concept. He wants this idea that we return with simonim because he figures no one else can provide simonim. That would not be true in this case. If it fell from the lova, does he want this takana to be in place in a hadra b'simin that we should return this document with a simin? He doesn't want that. He prefers it doesn't get returned at all. He would prefer that whoever found it should keep it forever. And so therefore the reasoning behind the takana does not apply again in this situation when we're talking about documents. And so the Gemara continues, rather Rava says, Simonim and Doraisa. Simonim are actually Doraisa. D'chsiv, as it's written in the Pasuk, V'hoya imcha derosha chicha also, it says it will be with you until your brother seeks it out. V'chisale al daitcha shi'itenenu kodem shidreshenu. Would it occur to you that you would return it, you would give it to the person before he seeks it out? Ela darsheyu, rather what it means is that you have to investigate him. Im ramahu o eno ramai, is he a swindler, is he not a swindler? And so therefore, what does that mean to say that you are investigating and making sure that this object really belongs to him? Lav b'simonim, doesn't the pasuk mean to say simonim? So you see that simonim are already essentially alluded to in this pasuk, and the Gemara says shmamina. Indeed, we see from here that simonim are doraisa. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava says, Im tim salomar simonim doraisa. If you're going to say that simonim are doraisa, and the Gemara interrupts and asks him, Tim salomar, what do you mean if we're going to say that it's doraisa? Ha pashad le, simonim doraisa. We just said that simonim are doraisa. And the Gemara says to that, what we mean is, Misham de'ikol emar kedeshaninim, because that proof that we brought of V'hoya imcha derosh, you could actually have explained that as we explained, as we answered earlier. As Rashi over here says, kedeshaninan be'edim, meaning to say, it could be that the way you're going to find out whether the person is a swindler or not is not with simonim. It could actually be with edim. It could be with witnesses. That's why we're saying im tim salomer. It's not 100% a proof. You could have answered in a different fashion. But in any case, if you're going to say that simonim are doraisa, so then simonim v'simonim, let's say two people offer simonim, so then yaniach, so then you have to leave it until Eliyahu Navi comes. You don't know who to return it to. Simonim ve'edim, let's say one person provides simonim and one person provides witnesses. You know, you're going to give the item to the person who brings the witnesses. Simonim v'simonim ve'ed echad, let's say one person provides simonim and the other person provides simonim and also has one witness. So in that case, eid echad commander, let's say dummy, the one witness is like he's not there at all. V'yaniach, and in that situation, again, you would leave it until Eliyahu Navi comes. And the Gemara continues, Eidei Ariga ve'Eidei Nefila. Let's say you have witnesses who saw the person who wove the garment, and then you also have witnesses who saw who it fell from. So then Tinasei la'Eidei Nefila, then we would give it to the person who has the witnesses that it fell from him. Da'amrinan, because we would say, Zivune Zavno mina shachrina nafal. This person sold it. Maybe he wove it, but he sold it and it really fell from someone else. And Rashi explains, Im tim salomar simonim doraisa. If you're going to say that simonim are doraisa, ribusa nakat. We're saying over here an added chiddush. Tiafilu amrinan doraisa. Even if we say simonim are doraisa, afilu hachi edem adifi. Nevertheless, witnesses are still better than simonim can mefarish v'azil, as we'll explain. Simonim ve'edem yinasin l'bal edem. If you have simonim and edem, you give it to the person who has the edem. Simonim v'simonim bo shnayim v'nasu. Simonim, two people come and each one they both give simonim. Yaniach at shiavo Eliyahu. You leave it until Eliyahu Navi comes and clarifies. And the Gemara continues, Midas arko, midas rachbo. If one person gives the measurement of its length, let's say we're talking about a garment, the other person gives the measurement of its width, tinasin lemidas arko, then the garment is given to the person who gives the length. The midas rachbo shiure kameshayr lo kad mechasi lamara, because when it comes to the width, a person is actually able to estimate that when the owner is actually wearing it, kad mechasi lamar v'koi, when the owner is standing in front of us and wearing it, umidas arko lo mishtar lo, but when it comes to midas arko, when it comes to the length, it's not possible, or it's not as possible possible to estimate it. Therefore, that is a better siman. Midas arko, midas rachma, midas gamav. Let's say you have somebody who provides the length and the width, and the other person provides midas gamav, which means to say, like the letter gamma, the Greek letter gamma means to say both the length and the width combined. He's not able to separate it out and say what the length is and what the width is, but he can say what the combination of the two measurements are. So in that case, yinasen lemidas arko v'rachva. You give it to the person who's able to divide it up, who's able to provide the measure of the length and the width. Midas arko, midas rachva, midas mishkalosov. Let's say one person can give the length and the width, the other person can give the weight. Yinasen lemidas mishkalosov. We give it to the person who can provide the weight, because again, that is a better siman. And Rashi explains, midas arko, zeh omer midas arko, v'zeh nosein midas rachva. This person says the length, and this person says the width. Shiyurei mishar le'mrosa biat habaylim, shiara keshahaya bala mechusa b'im talis. So it's possible, let's say it's a talis, you're able to estimate the width if you see the person wearing it. That's not as true when it comes to the length. Midas arko v'rachva midas gamav. One person gives the length and the width, the other one gives the combination. Zeh omer kach arko v'kach rachva. This one says here's the length and the width. V'zeh omer arko v'rachva kach v'kach amos bein hakol. The other one says if you add the length and width together, this is what it is. Aval eni yodea kama b'orach v'kama b'rocha. But the person doesn't know exactly what the length is, exactly what the width is. Gamav is gam yavanis. Again, that's the Greek letter gamma. Asuya kamin chaf shalanu. It's made in that shape, as Rashi says over here. Lahachi kari orech v'rochav yachad gamav. That's why it's called length and width together, because the shape of this letter, that shape actually is representative of the width and the length. And the Gemara continues, Hu omer simane haget, v'hi omer simane haget. Let's say he provides the simanim of the divorce document, and she provides the simanim of the divorce document, yinasa in law, so then it's given to her. And the idea is, how else would she know what it looks like? The only way she knows, she must have received the get. The Gemara says, B'mai, well, what siman exactly is being provided? Ilema b'midas arko v'rachva, if what's being provided is the length and the width, Dilma bahadi did not get lechazise, maybe while he was holding it, she saw it, therefore maybe it's no proof that it was really given to her. And so the Gemara says, Ella rather, nekav yeshbo b'tzados ploni. The case is where she's able to say that there's a hole by the side of this particular letter. There already it's a proof that she actually received the get. And the Gemara continues, Hu omer simane hachut, if he says the simanim of the string that's wrapped, the get is tied with the string, v'hi omer simane hachut, and she says the simanim of the string, yinas in law. So then again, you give it to her, that's a proof that she must have received the get. Otherwise, she would not have known the simanim of the string, which is tied around the get. And the Gemara says, B'mai, well, what exactly is the siman? Ilema b'chivra uvesumka, if you're talking about the fact that the string is white or the string is red, v'dilma b'hadi denaket lechazisi, again, maybe while he was holding it, she saw the string, that would not be evidence that she received the get. Ella v'midas arko, rather what we're talking about is she's able to tell us the length of the string, which would not be possible just by seeing it because the string is tied around the get. The get is rolled up, so you wouldn't be able to identify the length of the string. The fact that she knows the length of the string shows that she actually received the get. Hu omer b'chafisa v'hi omeres b'chafisa. Let's say he says that I kept it in a case, or you found it in a case, and she says also, she identifies a siman that it was in this chafisa, it was in this case. In that case, you nasin lo. In that case, you give it to him. My time, what's the reason? Because she happens to know that everything he has he puts in this case, and therefore that siman is not worth anything. It doesn't actually prove that she received the get. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah of Yad Masai Chayiv Lahachers. Until when is a person obligated to announce a lost object? Ad Kadesha Yedu Bo Shcheinav Divrei Rabbi Meir. Until his neighbors know about it. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says Shalosh Regalim. It's for 3 holidays. V'Achar HaRegel HaAchron. And then after the last of the 3 holidays, Shiva Yamim, you give an additional 7 days. Kadesha Yelech Leveso Shlosha, so that he has 3 days to go to his house. V'Achzor Shlosha, and 3 days to return from his house. V'Achar's Yom Echad, and then he can announce. He can try to get the Aveda back for that 1 day. Rashi explains Shecheinav Mefarish B'Gemara. First of all, his neighbors, that the Gemara will explain. Kedei sheyelech kol echad leveso. The idea is you give enough time so everyone should be able to go to his house. Shalosha, 3 days. Mishayishma achroz, meaning from the time he hears the announcement. V'yadim avid lo klum v'miyavin shavad yachzor shlosha. That way he can go home, find out if he lost anything, and if he sees he did lose something, then he'll return. It'll take him 3 days. V'yachroz yom echad, and announce for 1 day means ani avarti. He announces I was the one that lost. V'yelu simanan. Here are the simanim of what I lost. V'Gemara parch de Gimel Yamain shows lachzor l'sof Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara will ask that 3 days is not enough time to get to the end of Eretz Yisrael. And the Gemara says, Tana was taught, Shechene Aveda, when we talk about the neighbors in the Mishnah, again, according to Rabbi Meir, he has to announce it until the neighbors find out. We're talking about the neighbors of the person who lost the object. The Gemara says, My Shechene Aveda. Well, 1 second. What does that mean, the neighbors of the person who lost the object? Ilema Shechenim Debal Aveda. If you say that it literally means the neighbors of the one who owned the lost object, so Iyad Ale, but if the person who found the object knows who the person who lost the object is, because to know who the neighbors of that person are, you need to know who that person is. So if he knows who that person is, Lezel V'Lahadrin Hilis, so why don't you just go and return the item to the person who lost the object? So that doesn't make any sense. It can't be that you announce the item until the neighbors of the owner of the item are aware. What it really means is the neighbors of the area in that location where the Aveda was found, you have to announce it so that they should be able to find out, the people in that area, and again, that's according to the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rashi says, the idea is that it might belong to them, so you have to announce it for the amount of time that they should be made aware. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. The Mishnah said, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, again, it's 3 regalim that you announce it for, and then after the last regal, 7 days. That way the person can go home. That's a 3-day trip. Come back. That's a 3-day trip, and then he'll have 1 day to retrieve his lost item. And the Gemara says, in a minute, we have the following contradiction. When it talks about saying, V'sein talu moter livracha, it says, B'shlosha b'marcheshvan, it's on the 3rd of Marcheshvan, Shoel and Asagashavim, that we ask for rain. Rabbi Gamliel Omer b'zayin bo, Rabbi Gamliel says, no, it's the 7th of Marcheshvan, Shehu tezvav yom achar chag, that is 15 days after the holiday, Kadei sheyagia achron shev Eretz Yisrael, so that the last one in Eretz Yisrael, meaning the last one who's journeying from Eretz Yisrael, can reach L'nahar Pras, can reach the Euphrates River. And so you see, it essentially takes 15 days for the person to get home, and here we're saying 3 days. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yosef says, Lokash, it's not difficult. Kan b'mikdash rishon, kan b'mikdash sheni. In one case, we're talking about during the times of the first Beis HaMikdash, and the other we're talking about during the times of the second Beis HaMikdash. B'mikdash rishon, the nefishi Yisrael tuva. During the Mikdash rishon, there were many Jewish people. Techsibuhu, like it says in the Pasuk, Yehuda v'Yisrael rabim kechol asher al hayam larov. It says they were like the sand by the seashore. There were so many of them, so ba'inan kuli hai. So then they spread out further, and you needed more time for everyone to get home. B'mikdash sheni, but in the second Beis HaMikdash, the lo nefisha Yisrael tuva, there weren't so many Jewish people. Techsibu, like it says, kol hakol ke'echa, the entire congregation, arba ribo alpayim shlosh meos v'shishim, that is the number of arba ribo is 40,000, alpayim is another 2,000, that's 42,000. It's a total of 42,360. So that's not so many people. So lo bayin kuli hai, so you don't need that much time. But the Gemara continues, Amar le Abaye, Abaye said back to him, to Rav Yosef, but isn't it written in the Pasuk? This is also by the second Beis HaMikdash. It says, Vayeshva kohanim v'alavim v'gomer v'ameshorim v'hashoarim v'chol Yisrael b'areim. It essentially says, even though there were fewer, they all lived b'areim. They were all in the same cities that they were in before. And therefore they were just as spread out in the Mikdash Sheni as they were in the Mikdash Rishon. V'keven da'achi, when he says, since this was the case, Ivcha mistaber, it actually makes sense to say the exact opposite. Mikdash Rishon, the Nefishi Yisrael Tuva, in the Mikdash Rishon, where there were a lot of Jewish people, the Mitzuvas Alma, Umeshtachi Shai Rasa, people were grouped together. There were many caravans, the Azli Bein Biyamamu Vein Belelia, and they traveled both in the daytime and at night. So lo ba'in on Kuli Ha, you wouldn't need so much time. Pesagi B'Talasa Yoma, in 3 days would be enough. Mikdasheni Delona Fishi Yisrael Tuva, but in the Mikdasheni, where there weren't so many Jewish people, V'lo Mitzavas Alma, V'lo Meshtachi Shai Rasa, they weren't grouped into a situation where it would be common to find caravans, the Azli Bein Biyamamu Vein Belelia, to find caravans that traveled both during the day and at night. So then ba'in and kuli hai, so then you would actually need more time. But the Gemara continues with another answer. Rava Amar Rava says, Lo shna b'mikdash rishon v'lo shna b'mikdash sheni. Actually, it doesn't make a difference, mikdash rishon or mikdash sheni. When it comes to Aveda, that's already different. We don't make the person wait so long. Lo yitrichu rabbanan ba'aveda yoser midai. The rabbanan didn't want to bother a person to take care of a lost object more than necessary, and that's why it's less time, specifically with regards to an Aveda. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ravina says, Shmami, no, we see from this, Ki machriz galima machrizu, that when the person makes the announcement, he announces that he found a garment. Because if you think that he just announces in general, I found a lost item, without specifying the item, he's got to add on a day then, give the person an extra day to check all of his items to see if he lost anything. Rather, you see from this that he's announcing more specifically that he found this garment, this cloak. Shmami, the Gemara says, indeed, you see that this is the case. And Rashi explains, Shma mina midelo yahavi le Rabbanan shos ela halicha v'chazara. From the fact that the Rabbanan only give you time to go and return, so it must be glima machras. It must be that he's announcing that he found a cloak, a garment. Zesha matzah machras shem chayfetz. The point is, the person who found it is announcing the name of the object. Talis matzasi. I found a talis. That's why he doesn't need a whole day to look through all of his stuff. Ma'avad, what did he lose? A person knows how many talisas he has. When he gets to his house, he'll check if he finds it. He doesn't need a lot of time. Because if you think that he announces a general thing, that I found the lost object, if he doesn't say the name of the chayfetz, if he doesn't say the name of the object, you have to give everybody an extra day. Now there's a machlokas about this later on, and that's why Ravina is saying, you see from this, from the fact that we give so little time, it must be glima machris. And again, the Gemara says, Shema mina, indeed you see that this is the case, but the Gemara continues, Rava says, not necessarily. It could be, you could even say, that it's a lost object that's being announced. But the Rabbanan did not again want to bother the person with a lost object more than necessary, and that's why they didn't want to make him have to give another day for the people to look through all of their stuff. Rashi says, we don't want to make the person have to stay more than 7 days. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Regel Rishon Omer Regel Rishon. The first holiday he announces, he should say, it's the first holiday of my announcement of this lost object. Regel Sheni, Omer Regel Sheni. On the second holiday, he says it's the second holiday. Regel Shlishi Omer Stam. But in the third holiday, he just says, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't say it's the third. The Gemara says, V'amai, why? Lema Regel Shlishi. Why doesn't he say it's the third? And the Gemara says to that, because if he says that, people might get mixed up. They might really think it's just the second. They might think they have more time when they hear Shlishi, because automatically they're going to say, oh, this is the number, this is the third number, whatever number time it is that he's announcing, must be there's going to be another regel. So better just to say it's tam, so people realize this is the last opportunity. The Gemara says Sheni Nami, well the second also, maybe they'll get mixed up and they'll think it's the first. And we'll take a look at Rashi, Regel Rishon, Shumachar Zomer B'Hachrazasu, Zeh Regel Rishon. The first holiday, he says in his announcement, this is the first holiday. Shalol HaTriach Es Ovid Lachzer. That way the person who loses it doesn't need to come back. He doesn't need to travel home and come right back to get it, because he can get it. Regel Sheni, when he comes back, Regel Sheni, he'll give the Simonim, he'll be able to get it. But Shlishi Omer Stam, but the third one again, he just says in general, Aveda Matzasis. I found him. He just says, I found the lost object. Ve'en Omer is a Regel Hula Metziah. He doesn't say which holiday it is since he found it. Kadei Shelo Yismach Ovid Al Regel Hava. We don't want the person who lost it to rely on the fact there's going to be another Regel. V'yovin Shezeh Regel Achar. In this way, the person will realize, he'll understand that this is the final Regel. We will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chavches Amud Beis.